All right, we got the first hard VERUS HILLA clear video from the Shadower. This team, based on my understanding, is absolutely decked out. I think what I've heard is they had 5 players on this team with two set arcane 70. So pretty much 5 people with over 200 mil plus cap. So their DPS was insane. And just watch how much damage they're going to do. So with our one practice run, or few practice ones that we've done, hard mode has about 7 point, I don't know, I don't know, 7. The average team is, yeah, 7 trillion, 70 trillion maybe. 7, maybe 70 trillion damage or HP compared to normal, which is 55 trillion or whatever it is. It's 5.5 to 7.2 or something. So it's a big jump up, which was more than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like hard Damien, where the HPs are the same, but just everything hits a little harder. Attacks are a little quicker. There's less delays, and there's just more mechanics to it. But in this video kind of showcase how much damage. Look at this. In the first minute, first 75 seconds, almost their entire team is above 1 trillion damage already, and the top DPS is already at almost 2 trillion. So they are absolutely cranking here. And one of the things that I want to point out here is who the aggro is. That aggro right there is a phantom. You can see by the way he's doing um, melee, and he's just attacking and moving. Just a great aggro all together. And this team was actually locked in. They played super well. They ignored all mechanics and just dodged red threads. They didn't even use the altars or anything. And they had a lot of things that they did extremely, extremely well that you can take away from it and really respect, because I think people just assume that gear is trumps all. But in this boss, the skill, you need the skill and the gear more than ever. And because for one, no power elixirs, right? Two, no healing if they're going with this strategy. So every tick damage or everything that you're getting hit by really adds up in a long 10-minute fight. Like if they're getting hit by red threads, if they're getting hit by poisons or the necrotic on the ground, then it really shows. And you need 10 people to be locked in and do it and to know mechanics. And you also need a very, very good aggro. So the aggro here is really doing a great job of just keeping the boss in the corner and facing the corner for the most part. Now, obviously, not every time he's just going to be able to just tank it. He's going to have to move based on red threads here, based off of, rotations and what cooldowns he has. But you can see positioning, just like any other boss, is so impactful and really makes the boss so much easier when you have one stable aggro that knows what they're doing and can hold aggro the entire time, and the rest of the team can really just focus on doing their jobs and tunneling and staying to the left and dodging the red threads here. So it's pretty cool to see Phantom hold aggro when there's other equally geared players, like the Shadower, for example, which has insane burst, insane damage, consistent damage, and the Phantom is able to hold it this entire time. So very sneaky, underrated. And look at this, 4 minutes in, they're in a good spot, right on cue, playing amazingly. DPS is absolutely off the charts, as consistent as it gets. Look at that. They got 6 people within 11 to 12% damage, which is just shows how locked in these guys are gear wise, but also mechanically, right? And so now I want to talk about sort of what are some of the best classes that I've noticed that are thriving in VERUS HILLA that is very unique, right? It's very surprising. Some classes. And so the first thing that you have to understand is that self healing and power elixirs classes kind of have a hard time here, right? Like people that rely on power elixirs have a hard time. For example, like paladins and their self heals, nightwalkers with their passive heals, they honestly don't really they don't get their added bonus survivability in this boss when you play the boss that they are doing it, right? When you're just avoiding altars and sort of just tunneling DPS. So that's one class. So like classes like that don't really shine as well, right? They can still put out damage, but it depends on the player and their mechanics. Second things, classes with place down skills, if done properly, like if the boss is still in this corner here, honestly, really thrive. When the boss isn't moving and dashing and diving and teleporting all over the place, the place down skills really hold true and can maximize their passive damage. So classes like, I don't know, cannoneers, corsairs, wild hunters, even nightwalkers, if they're able to use their omen in this corner, it really can maximize their damage. Now, another thing is attacking and moving, right? Wild hunters, wind archers, phantoms, all those classes that can just maximize or continue their rotation while dodging and moving really have an advantage, and just being able to uptime is huge, right? So classes like, something similar as like a paladin a or like a nightwalker that has a little bit of a delay to it, clunkiness, uh, can sometimes be caught in bad spots as far as dodging red threads and dodging mechanics while maintaining their DPS, right? But classes that can attack on the move and dodge and jump around and do all these things while still attacking, honestly, have such a huge advantage. And another thing that I think, like classes like a wind archer, that is usually not known for its survivability that much because it doesn't have that much self healing, really thrive in VERUS HILLA because of their one barrier. Their barrier skilled. It's a sort of get it just allows them to have extra HP. It allows them that sort of um, be able to tank more damage. So all of these tick damages, all these little attacks that usually would chunk your HP, if you have your shields up, obviously, you are going to be able to be immune. You're going to be able to tank all that damage and have a lot of more wiggle room to maximize your DPS, a lot more wiggle room to survive and survive a lot of these mechanics. So I think Wind Archers are one of those classes that really shine here because of that one skill, their barrier that is up 30 seconds on a 60-second cooldown. It does damage, but it's also just extra life and HP. And in a long fight like this, really is it's really hard to die as a wind archer and not maximize your damage. And to maximize your damage is very easy to maximize your damage and survive as a wind archer. But right here, man, the DPS is starting to pull away a little bit. This top DPS is doing 8 billion damage in 7.5 minutes. Absolutely insane damage. Just so cool to see. And I wanted to talk about lastly how I think the meta, just some classes doing better, like, and line count is really showing now in this boss. Okay, so classes like paladins, for example, that are cream of the crop, arguably one of the best DPS classes in the game in certain bosses like Will and Hard Archon, and even Damien at times because of the short fights or the burst windows. But in these sort of fights where it's honestly 100% uptime, arguably, right? You're not really moving that much. You're dodging a little bit here and there, but it's it's not like burst for 30 seconds, DPS window, and just wait for mechanics like in Will, right? And then rinse and repeat, and then a test comes, and then your DPS is back up, your burst is back up. But other consistent damage dealing classes don't have time to catch, don't have time to get their lines in. So in our run, right, my paladin actually had the best gear at the time during our runs, and I finished, I finished third, fourth. I wasn't aggro at all. Wild Hunter had better aggro, was able to keep more maintain uptime, and just did insane damage. But then Nightwalker beat me, Shade beat me, Phantom was beating me as well because of a few things. The clones add up, right? If you're hitting all cap lines and you're able to get all those cap lines out consistently, it will start to show in damage. And then also as your line counts, right, in a 2-minute fight, paladins don't have the greatest 2-minute line count numbers compared to other classes. So those classes that actually have high line counts and are hitting full cap lines, say like for a phantom, or I think like Hayatos are very good. Heroes are decent. DKs, while wind archers, things like that. Those classes, a lot of thief classes as well, really showed out and showed up, and they can actually are starting to perform better than paladins, while paladins are um, actually more still very very strong because of Sacro, but are more of a upper middle tier versus being the top tier by kind of a wide margin. So it's very cool to see. Like I've seen a run where Akana was the aggro. I've seen a run where obviously Phantoms, Dual Blade, Shadowers. We had a Wild Hunter that was the aggro. I've seen a Blaster that was the aggro over a Demon Slayer. So it's cool to see that these classes that are you know underplayed, that maybe people thought were underperforming, are now honestly doing amazing things with the highest gear, even with equal gear or lesser gear, can outshine, classes like paladins, for example, that used to be, what were thought to be the cream of the crop. So shout out to these guys. They played flawlessly. Oh my gosh, all 10 people survived here. Their damage was as consistent as it gets. They cleared in what was their time? And as even as well as they all played, they still had 20 seconds. Like it's still pretty sweaty, right? If one person died early, rerun, start over. Right? If someone didn't pull their weight here, aggro started jumping, it could have been a fail, right? So very, very impressive run. It's not just the gear, it's just that their skill and be able to maximize their damage and their output was honestly the most impressive part. And shout out to them, man. Shout out to them. And the fact that this Shadower ended up fourth on the DPS chart. I think it was a DB that was better, Phantom, and I don't know what this other person was, but very, very close in DPS and very, very impressive output by all these classes. And shout out to them. Uh, Pretty cool to see.